There's a moment before words even enter the room when you feel something shift. You don't know why, you can't explain it, but something in your body knows. It's that pull, that awareness, that quiet sense that someone has just entered your orbit, and for some reason, your energy rearranges itself. We often think connection begins with conversation, with the right words, the witty line, the shared laughter. But the truth is, connection starts before all of that. It starts in the silence, in what's exchanged through the spaces between words. Sometimes you meet someone and your heart just settles. There's no rush to impress, no urgency to speak. You just feel seen without effort. That's the kind of connection that doesn't ask to be performed, it simply exists. We've grown so used to chasing chemistry that we forget the magic of what's quietly felt. The kind of connection that doesn't shout for attention, but instead whispers, "You're home." And maybe that's what love really is, not something loud or dramatic, but something that moves through us in silence and steadiness long before we even realize what's happening. Think about how you can sit next to someone and not say a single word, yet everything feels said. You don't need to explain your mood, your silence, your hesitation, because they already know. Their presence tells you, you don't have to be more than this. That's when you understand that the truest form of connection isn't about what we say, but about how we feel in each other's presence. It's not the words that make you feel safe, it's the energy behind them. Sometimes we meet people who speak beautifully but leave us feeling unseen. And sometimes someone barely says a word, yet we feel completely understood. That's the difference between noise and connection. One fills the air, the other fills the heart. We're not moved by perfect sentences, we're moved by what feels real. We're drawn to the moments when someone's eyes say, "I get you," even before their mouth does. And when that happens, it's not a spark, it's recognition. It's two souls remembering something ancient. We spend so much time trying to perfect what to say, how to say it, when to say it, as if the right combination of words will make someone stay. But love doesn't work like that. The people who truly connect with us aren't waiting for a flawless performance. They're waiting to feel us. They want to know if our presence brings peace or tension, if our energy invites safety or pressure. True connection isn't a language of words. It's a language of energy. It's the tone behind a high, the softness behind a touch, the calm in a shared silence. There's a kind of power in unspoken love, not because it hides something, but because it reveals something deeper. It shows that love doesn't need decoration to exist. When two people feel each other without words, it's because something far more genuine is being communicated. You can't fake that. You can fake charm, interest, even affection, but you can't fake resonance. And that's what true connection is: resonance. That invisible, magnetic thread that pulls two people closer, even when nothing is being said out loud. The most memorable moments in life often have no dialogue. The long hug after a hard day, the glance across a crowded room that says everything you're too afraid to admit, the small pause when someone reaches out, just to let you know they're still there. Those moments live longer than any conversation ever will. Because words fade, but the way someone made you feel, that lingers. That's what our hearts are wired for, to feel before they understand. So the next time you're with someone and you don't know what to say, maybe you don't have to. Maybe the silence is saying it for you. Maybe the connection you're trying so hard to express is already being heard, just not through sound. Because sometimes the most powerful kind of love doesn't need to be announced, it just needs to be felt. And the people meant for you will feel you long before they ever hear you. The world will keep teaching you to talk louder, to say more, to prove your worth through words, but the ones who really see you won't need convincing. They'll recognize your presence before they know your name, And that's when you'll know it's real, when silence speaks louder than words ever could. There's something sacred about the kind of love that doesn't need to be said out loud. The kind that doesn't rush to define itself, that doesn't need constant reassurance, that just is. Unspoken love teaches us something most of us forget in the noise of modern relationships: how to be present. Because when words fall away, when there's nothing to fill the silence, you're left with only truth. You have to feel, you have to listen, not just to what's being said, but to what's meant. We're so used to talking our way through connection. We text, we call, we post, we try to describe every emotion, explain every action, interpret every glance. But when love goes unspoken, you don't get to hide behind explanations. You have to be there fully. You start to notice the way someone's energy changes when they walk into a room. You learn to read the weight behind a sigh, the meaning in a look, the comfort in quiet company. That's what emotional presence is. It's not reacting, it's receiving. It's being tuned in enough to sense what another person needs without them having to ask. Unspoken love slows us down. It takes us out of our heads and into our hearts. When you can't rely on words, you start paying attention in a different way. You notice the small things: how someone's voice softens when they care, how their eyes light up when they see you, how their body relaxes when they feel safe. These are all messages. These are all ways of saying, "I love you," without ever speaking it. It's the kind of communication that can't be forced, because it doesn't come from the mind, it comes from awareness. Most of us are terrified of silence because silence leaves us naked. It takes away the performance, the charm, the witty distractions. But that's also where love becomes real. When you can sit in the same room as someone, not needing to fill the air, and still feel connected, that's presence. That's when you know you're not just sharing space, you're sharing energy. Unspoken love teaches us to be comfortable in that space, to understand that love isn't always something you do, it's something you are with another person. Think about it. The people who have impacted you most, it wasn't their words that stayed with you, it was the way they made you feel seen. It was the way they listened, the way they paid attention when you didn't even realize you needed it. That's emotional presence. It's not about being the loudest person in the room, it's about being the most attuned. It's about sensing when someone's world is heavy, when their smile is forced, when their silence is actually a call for closeness. Love without words also teaches humility, because it reminds us that we can't control connection. We can't talk our way into someone's heart. We can only show up with openness, with eyes that see, ears that listen, and a heart that feels. Sometimes that's all someone really wants: not your advice, not your solutions, just your presence. The quiet kind of love that says, "You don't have to be alone in this." And here's the beautiful part: when you learn to love in silence, you become better at loving in sound, because you start speaking from a deeper place. Your words stop being filler and start being felt. They become fewer, but they mean more. You stop saying things just to be heard and start saying things that are true. That's what emotional presence does. It purifies love. It removes the noise, the performance, the expectation. What's left is sincerity. The greatest form of connection doesn't need constant declaration. It lives in the tiny moments of awareness we share. The hand that reaches out instinctively when you're sad, the look that says, "I'm proud of you," without a single word, the pause before leaving, because neither of you really wants to go yet. Those are the quiet ways love shows up, and they carry more honesty than 1,000 beautifully crafted sentences ever could. When you start paying attention to unspoken love, you realize that presence is the real language of intimacy. And presence isn't loud, it's attentive, it's patient, it's soft. It's the choice to stay when silence stretches, to notice the things most people miss, to feel instead of rush, because love, at its core, isn't about being understood through explanation, it's about being felt through presence. And when you learn that, words become optional. We live in a world where everyone is trying to say the perfect thing. Every message is edited, every caption rewritten, every conversation rehearsed in our minds before it ever happens. We're terrified of silence, terrified of saying the wrong thing, terrified of being misunderstood. And in that fear, we've started performing love instead of experiencing it. We've become so focused on how we sound that we've forgotten what we feel. You see it everywhere in dating, in friendships, even in the way we text. We try to be clever, charming, witty, articulate. We want to be memorable, but the irony is, the more we try to sound perfect, the less we actually connect. Because connection doesn't happen through polished words. It happens through presence. It's in the tone of your voice, the timing of your laugh, the softness in your eyes when someone's speaking. That's what people remember. No one ever falls in love because of a perfect sentence. They fall in love because of how you made them feel when you said it. When we chase perfection, we lose authenticity. We start measuring ourselves by how well we perform rather than how deeply we connect. We hold back when we could be honest. We pretend to be composed when we're really nervous. We hide our awkwardness instead of letting it remind us we care. And the tragedy is, the moments that bring people closest are usually the messy ones, the ones where our words stumble, where our truth leaks out unpolished, where we stop trying to sound impressive and just sound real. Think about the last time you truly connected with someone. It probably wasn't because they said something perfectly. It was because they said something true. Maybe they admitted they were scared. Maybe they told you something vulnerable without knowing how you'd react. Maybe they just looked at you in a way that made you feel seen. That's what builds closeness, not the performance, but the presence behind it. The courage to show up imperfectly and still be sincere. We've turned communication into a kind of competition. Who can respond the fastest, who can sound the smartest, who can get the most validation from their words. But love doesn't work like that. You can't talk your way into someone's heart. You can only be your way into it, because at the end of the day, people don't crave perfection, they crave honesty. They want to know there's something real behind your words. They want to feel your sincerity more than your cleverness. And yet, it's hard. We've been conditioned to believe that if we say the wrong thing, we'll lose our chance. That vulnerability is risky, that silence is uncomfortable, that being honest might make us look weak. But the truth is, every time we choose authenticity over performance, we build something stronger. Real attraction doesn't grow from perfect conversation. It grows from emotional safety. It grows when someone feels that you're not trying to impress them, you're trying to understand them. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Just listen, just be there, just let someone feel heard without rushing to fill the space. Because when you stop trying to deliver the perfect line, you start delivering presence. You start giving the one thing most people are starving for: genuine attention. It's rare now, and that's why it's magnetic. The truth is, the people who will matter most in your life won't remember how polished you sounded. They'll remember the tone in your voice when you cared. They'll remember how your face softened when they were struggling. They'll remember that you didn't try to fix everything, you just stayed. That's the kind of love that can't be scripted. That's the kind of connection you can't rehearse. We keep thinking love requires more words, when in reality, it often requires fewer. It's not about saying the right thing, it's about meaning what you say. And when you mean it, when your words come from a real place, people can feel it even if you stumble, even if you're scared, even if it comes out wrong. Because truth has a way of being heard, even when it's spoken imperfectly. So maybe the goal isn't to say the perfect thing anymore. Maybe the goal is to say the honest thing, to stop performing and start feeling, to let go of the script and trust that the right people will understand your heart, not just your words. Because love doesn't need to sound perfect, it just needs to be real. There's a kind of peace that comes when love is felt instead of performed. It's the difference between trying to be loved and allowing yourself to be. When love is performed, it's exhausting. You're constantly measuring yourself, adjusting your tone, controlling your reactions, trying to be everything someone might want. But when love is felt, when it flows freely and honestly, you can finally breathe. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to keep wondering if you're enough. You just are. And that's where emotional safety begins, in the spaces where love doesn't need to be earned, only experienced. We all crave that feeling of safety with someone. The kind of safety that lets us drop the mask, the need to impress, the constant urge to say the right thing. When you're with someone who loves you beyond your performance, your nervous system relaxes. You start to show the real parts of you, the awkward, unsure, unfiltered sides that you usually hide. And instead of being judged, you're met with warmth. That's the moment you realize love isn't meant to feel like a test. It's meant to feel like home. When love becomes a performance, fear takes over, fear of losing it, fear of not being good enough to keep it. You start to confuse being loved for who you are with being loved for what you do. And the truth is, that kind of love doesn't last, because you can't sustain a performance forever. You can't always be charming, composed, or emotionally flawless. Sooner or later, the real you will come out, and if you've only been loved for the version of you that's edited, it'll never feel safe to stay that way. But when love is felt, when it's grounded in presence rather than perfection, something changes inside you. You stop needing to protect yourself all the time. You start to trust that you can be imperfect and still be loved. You start to understand that connection doesn't grow through constant effort, it grows through truth. The kind of truth that doesn't need an explanation, the kind that says, I see you exactly as you are, and I'm not going anywhere. That's what emotional safety feels like, not just being accepted, but being understood. We often think love is about doing nice things, saying the right words, showing up in impressive ways. But the foundation of real love isn't in action, it's in energy. It's how you make someone feel in your presence. You can give gifts, write long messages, plan the perfect dates, but if someone can't relax around you, if they can't exhale, it won't matter. People remember how you make their heart feel more than anything you ever did for them. And when your love is felt deeply, quietly, consistently, it becomes their safe place in a world that never stops demanding. Emotional safety doesn't come from grand gestures. It comes from emotional consistency, from knowing that love doesn't disappear when things get uncomfortable, from seeing that someone's care isn't conditional on your performance. That's when the walls come down. That's when real intimacy begins. Because people can only open up when they don't feel like they have to earn your approval. They can only show their heart when they know it won't be used against them. And here's the irony: when love is felt, not performed, everything becomes more beautiful. The laughter becomes freer, the connection becomes deeper, the conversations become more honest, because there's no pressure to be perfect anymore. You don't have to prove your worth, you just have to be present. The relationship stops being a show and starts being a sanctuary. We live in a time where it's easy to perform love. Social media makes affection look like a display: pictures, captions, constant proof that we care. But real love rarely looks like that. Real love is quiet. It's the hand that reaches out under the table when words aren't enough. It's the small check-in when no one's watching. It's the simple way someone looks at you like you're safe, like you don't have to keep pretending. That's the kind of love that builds a foundation strong enough to hold vulnerability. When love is felt instead of performed, we don't just connect, we heal. We start to believe that maybe love doesn't have to be hard, that maybe it can be gentle, that maybe it can exist without conditions. Because the truth is, emotional safety isn't something someone gives you, it's something you build together. It grows in the spaces between your words, in the trust between your silences, in the knowing that neither of you is pretending anymore. And once you experience that kind of love, the kind that doesn't need an audience, the kind that doesn't need to be proven, you'll never settle for performance again. You'll choose the one who makes you feel safe just by being there. The one whose love doesn't shout, it stays. There's a moment between two people when words stop being necessary. The conversation fades, the noise around them disappears, and what's left is a kind of silence that feels alive. It's not awkward or empty, it's full. It's full of understanding, comfort, and something that doesn't need to be said to be known. That kind of silence is rare, and when it happens, you can feel it in your chest. It's the quiet proof that connection doesn't always need sound to be heard. We're taught to fill silence. We're told that quiet moments mean something's wrong, that if we're not talking, we're losing interest, that if we're not saying something, the energy will fade. But that's not true. Real connection doesn't depend on constant communication. It depends on presence. When you can sit with someone in complete silence and still feel connected, that's when you know there's something deeper between you. You don't need to fill the space with reassurance, you already feel it. There's something beautiful about being with someone who doesn't make you feel pressured to perform. You don't have to entertain them. You don't have to keep the rhythm going. You can just be. That's the loudest kind of intimacy there is, the kind where you can exist side by side without needing to prove anything. The silence becomes its own language. It says, I'm comfortable with you. It says, you don't need to say anything for me to understand. It's a kind of connection that goes beyond conversation because it's built on trust, not tension. When silence feels heavy, it usually means something's missing: presence, attention, honesty. But when silence feels peaceful, it means you've found safety. It means both people are tuned in, even without words. The connection speaks for itself. It's in the glance that lingers a second longer, the hand that reaches out instinctively, the breath that sinks without intention. Those moments are louder than any declaration of love could ever be because they come from truth. Some of the most powerful memories we hold are made in silence. The way someone looked at you right before you said goodbye. The quiet car ride where you didn't need music because the air between you was enough. The hug that lasted just a few seconds longer than expected. None of those moments had dialogue, yet they said everything. That's because silence has a way of revealing what words can't express. It strips connection down to its essence: presence. We often think love is proven through action or words. We look for grand gestures, thoughtful messages, constant reminders that we matter. But the older you get, the more you realize that the real proof of love isn't in the noise, it's in the calm. It's in the moments when someone doesn't need to fill the space because they're secure enough just to share it with you. It's in how natural it feels to just sit together without needing to fix, perform, or impress. That's when love feels most real, when it feels quiet, not because there's nothing to say, but because everything's already understood. Silence can be the truest mirror of connection because it exposes what's real. If there's tension underneath, it shows. If there's peace, it radiates. You can't fake comfort in silence. You can't pretend presence. Either you feel it or you don't. That's why it's such a powerful test of connection, not in a way that's harsh, but in a way that's revealing. It tells you whether what you share is built on noise or depth. There's something sacred about the kind of silence that exists between two people who trust each other. It's a silence that holds, not hides. It's not the absence of communication, it's the highest form of it. Because in that space you're saying, I don't need to fill this with anything, I already know you're here. That's the kind of love that doesn't crave attention, doesn't need performance, doesn't seek validation. It just is, and maybe that's the lesson that love doesn't always arrive wrapped in words. Sometimes it shows up quietly, through stillness, through shared breathing, through presence. Sometimes the loudest proof that you're connected to someone is that you can be silent together and still feel everything. You don't have to talk it into existence. You don't have to explain it. You just have to be there fully, calmly, completely. Because when the silence between two people feels full instead of empty, that's when you know it's real. That's when you know it's love.